Okay, so water damage restoration. How much do we really know about it? It's one of those things you kind of hope you never have to deal with, but
Right, like out of sight, out of mind, until suddenly,
Yeah.
exactly. Until suddenly you've got a flooded basement and you're wading through a sea of jargon and wondering who to even call.
it's true. Most people don't think about it until they're, well, wading through it, like you said.
Yeah.
But that's why we're doing this deep dive, to give you a heads up, some knowledge to navigate this whole world that most people don't think about.
I love it. And today's deep dive is taking us deep into the S500 standard for water damage restoration. We've got a great article from CARSI to guide us. That's the Cleaning and Restoration Science Institute. Big wigs in Australia when it comes to this stuff.
Oh, they definitely know their stuff, and they're very upfront about why this S500 standard is so important.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of what the standard is, let's talk about the why. Why does it even matter? Why should our listeners care about this S500 thing?
Well, for starters, it's about making sure things are done right. Think of it like, I don't know, you wouldn't want a surgeon operating without established procedures, right?
Absolutely not. You want
Yeah.
someone who knows what they're doing, especially when it's something that important.
Exactly. The S500, that's that peace of mind knowing there's a system, a way to make sure every water damage restoration job is tackled with the same level of like know-how.
So consistency, it's like a guarantee of quality.
Exactly. And with that comes credibility. When a company says they follow the S500, it's like a stamp of approval. Tells you they're legit, not some fly-by-night operation.
So it's not just about drying out a flooded basement. It's about doing it the right way.
Yes. And not just the right way for your stuff, but also thinking about things like, I don't know, asbestos in old insulation or even sewage, hidden dangers that you might not think about.
Oh, wow. See, that's something most people wouldn't even consider. So it's about safety, too, protecting people's health.
Exactly. And then finally, CARSI talks about how the S500 helps make sure companies are following all the rules and regulations, local, state, even federal stuff.
Okay, so it's like a safety net. Knowing that there's a system in place, some guidelines to make sure everything is done by the book.
Exactly. Peace of mind knowing the pros you're hiring are doing things right and by the book.
This has already been making me feel more informed, just knowing there's a standard, a right way to do things. But we've talked about why the X500 is so important. What does it actually look like in practice?
Okay, so getting into the how. CARSI actually lays out 4 key ways that these standards actually get put into action in the real world. So, number 1 on their list is training, making sure the people doing the work really know what they're doing.
Because I guess you wouldn't want, like, some guy who watched a YouTube video on how to use a shop vac.
Right. Not exactly the expert you want handling your waterlogged living room.
Exactly.
CARSI is big on making sure professionals really understand the ins and outs of the S500. Like, it's not just knowing how to use a dehumidifier, it's knowing how to use it right.
Yeah. So understanding the how and the why behind every step.
Exactly. It's about being able to walk into a situation and say, okay, this is the type of damage, these are the risks, and this is how we're going to fix it.
Got it. So we've got trained professionals. What's next on CARSI's eyes list for putting the S500 into action?
This one might sound a bit dry, but stick with me, documentation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Especially if you're saying it might be dry, laughs.
Right. But I'm not talking about just paperwork for the sake of paperwork. It's about having a record, like a step-by-step of the whole process. What they did, why they did it, even down to the specific products and equipment they used.
So if something comes up later, you can actually go back and see exactly what happened.
Exactly. It's about transparency. The restoration team, the insurance company, everyone's on the same page.
Which is super important when it comes to insurance claims.
100%. And if, say, a few months down the line you notice a weird smell, maybe suspect there's mold again.
You've got that paper trail to back you up. You don't have to rely on memory or anything.
Exactly. You can pinpoint what needs to be looked at again. And of course, for insurance, it's huge. Proof that the work was done by the book.
Makes sense. So we've got the training, we've got the paper trail. What else is CARSI saying makes the S500 tick?
This one seems obvious, but you'd be surprised how often it gets overlooked. Having the right tools for the job.
Because I'm guessing there's a big difference between my little dehumidifier at home and what the pros use, right?
You are so right. We're talking industrial strength dehumidifiers, high-powered fans, and then even more specialized stuff. Moisture meters that can tell if there's hidden dampness, HEPA filter air scrubbers that get rid of even microscopic mold, spores, the works.
So bringing in the big guns to make sure the job is done right.
Exactly. Using the right equipment and the S500 guidelines, that's how you make sure the damage is really taken care of. No cutting corners.
which you definitely don't want to do with something like water damage. The consequences could be huge.
Absolutely. And then the final piece of the puzzle, CARSI stresses this a lot, staying up to date. Because this industry is always changing, there are always new techniques and technologies.
Especially with something like mold, right?
Yeah,
It seems like the science behind that is always evolving.
you're spot on. And the S500 itself, it's not set in stone. It gets updated to keep up with all the latest research. Restoration pros, they've got to be in the know about all the new best practices, new ways of doing things.
That's good to know, because as a homeowner, you don't want someone using outdated methods on your house.
Exactly. It's about having the confidence that whoever you're hiring is up to date on the latest and greatest.
It really is amazing, isn't it? Just knowing there is a standard, this S500 thing, it makes me feel so much more prepared.
It's about taking away that feeling of helplessness.
Yes. Instead of just crossing my fingers and hoping for the best, I can actually do something to protect myself.
Exactly. And CARSI would absolutely agree with you there. Knowing about the S500, it's not just about the knowledge, it's about how that knowledge translates into actually taking action.
So for our listeners out there, let's talk about what that action looks like. What does this all mean if, heaven forbid, they find themselves dealing with water damage?
Well, first and foremost, it's about peace of mind. Knowing that there's a right way to do things, that there are standards in place that can really ease your mind when you're dealing with a stressful situation.
It's like, okay, there's a plan. I don't have to panic.
Exactly. And beyond just feeling better, thinking practically, it's about protecting your investment. Whether it's your house, your business, whatever, water damage can really impact its value if it's not fixed properly.
Oh, I know. I've heard horror stories about houses that were basically unsellable because of mold that wasn't taken care of properly.
And that's where knowing about the S500 is so important. By making sure the work is done right, following those guidelines, you're protecting yourself in the long run.
So it's not just about fixing the immediate problem, it's about preventing future problems.
Exactly. And that goes back to being an empowered consumer. Imagine you've got this water damage, you call a company, and they're throwing all this jargon at you, suggesting things that maybe don't sound quite right.
I'll be honest, in the past, I probably would have just gone along with it,
Yeah.
just because I wouldn't know any better.
A lot of people would, but now, knowing about the S500, you can ask the right questions. Are they certified? Do they train their people on this stuff? You're not just taking their word for it.
And if they're being evasive about it, well, that tells you something right there.
It does. A good company, one that's doing things right, they'll be happy to answer those questions. They'll be proud to tell you they follow the S500 standard.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's amazing how something I knew so little about, like an hour ago, can suddenly feel so much less intimidating.
That's what we like to hear. Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. And, learning about the S500, it's got me thinking, is this something every company out there is doing? Or are there companies doing this water damage restoration without following these standards?
That's a great question, and it's something every homeowner should be asking.
Because if I'm going to hold up my end of the bargain, being an informed consumer, I need to know what to even expect.
Exactly. And honestly, it's not always clear cut. In some places, following the S500 might be the law. In other places, it might be more like a suggestion, something companies can choose to do but don't have to.
Okay, so it's even more important to ask those questions directly.
Absolutely. Don't assume. Ask. Ask about their S500 certification. Ask about their training. A reputable company, they'll be happy to talk about it.
Wow. This has been such a crash course, but in the best way possible. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of water damage restoration, but what we've uncovered is pure gold for homeowners.
Couldn't agree more.
So for anyone listening, if you take away just one thing from today's deep dive, let it be this. Ask questions, do your research, and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself in your home.
Well said. You deserve to have peace of mind, knowing your home is in good hands.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of water damage restoration. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and may your home stay high and dry.